Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Kapzinski, and I run a digital media agency called Control Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator today. Sorry we couldn't all meet up in person at CES. I was looking forward to it. A virtual CES last year was certainly not as fun as in-person CES. I was looking forward to certainly some good dinners and parties. Needed to get away from the house, so to speak, for that. But we have a great panel today and really excited to cover this topic because there's a lot of different pieces to it. So the whole panel today is going to center around brand partnerships and influencer marketing. And we have 5 experts with us today to kind of dissect and discuss this whole thing. And we'll figure out, how we can help you move forward in your process to take advantage of the topic. So with us today, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll dive into some discussion and give you some final thoughts at the end as to how to move forward. So first off, Liz, do you want to introduce yourself and say hi to everyone and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and a little bit on your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Liz DeAngelis. I'm the VP of Media at the Ad Council. For those of you unfamiliar, Ad Council is about an 80-year-old organization. We are the largest nonprofit, really focusing on, bringing together the brightest minds in media, tech, advertising, entertainment, marketing, and philanthropy. At the Ad Council, we develop life-changing campaigns to tackle the most pressing social issues facing our country. Our most recent and largest campaign to date was our vaccine education campaign, focusing on spreading facts and getting people the information they need around the COVID-19 vaccine. A little background on myself. I come from a media agency background, spent my early years creating and executing large-scale paid media buys across all channels. I moved to the Ad Council about 4.5 years ago, where I focused on digital media strategy and activation across search, programmatic, social, including platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, Snap, Pinterest, you name it, all kind of falls under my purview, and, making sure that we're making the most out of our brand partners.
Terrific. Well, welcome, Liz. Tori, do you want to go next?
Happy to. Good afternoon or day, everyone. I'm Tori. I'm a talent agent at leading entertainment and sports agency, Creative Artist Agency, and I sit in our digital media group, which not only represents digital endemic talent, but I also sit on teams for crossover and multi-hyphenate talent for clients across the agency. And our digital media group also focuses on branded content and advisory work for brands as well. Just to name a few, I represent Anna Akana, Jessamine Stanley, Liza Koshy, and Masi Arias, amongst many others. And I focus on brand partnerships and kind of all areas of their business and help them navigate the entertainment landscape. I'm originally from New York, but I'm based in Los Angeles and always have been during my 10 years with CAA, which is wild. So I've seen this company and industry through a lot of growth and change. And before moving into digital, before it was really a big piece of the industry, I was in CAA's music department, focusing on our large artist tour sponsorships and endorsements. I'm excited to be part of the conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tori, and welcome. Adam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. Hi, my name is Adam. I oversee business development and media innovation for CitizenNet. We are a Condé Nast-owned global digital agency. My role specifically is to help media companies and brand partners scale monetization using a combination of media placement across social platforms as well as ad tech partners. We've grown our collective intelligence and experience through managing about 3,000 brands across 300,000 campaigns a year on social. We also activate about 2,000 branded content campaigns a month for creators and brand media brands such as Condé Nast, BuzzFeed, Bustle Group, Revolt TV, and Live Nation. Personally, I've been in the industry for about 20 years, with the last 12 focused on social. I've been at the ground floor for a handful of startups in the social ad space, and I've been a part of 3 M&As in that time period. Our latest M&A between Citizen and Condé Nast in 2017 was actually focused around our ability to scale social branded content and data solutions across those walled gardens.
I'm still just amazed that you said that you've been involved with social media for 12 years.
Yeah, so that's I don't know if it's a good decision or a bad decision, but
That's a long time, certainly in the social media days,
Yeah.
I'll say. Welcome, Adam. Emiliano, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Emiliano Sacconi, and I come from the TV world. I launched and ran Fox and Nat Geo pay TV networks around the world for over a decade. I also built a broadcast TV network from scratch in the US at some point called Mundo Fox. And now I'm the founder and CEO of Cocina, a minority-owned platform and content studio engaging more than 90 million people globally, co-founded by Fox's master chef, co-star Aaron Sanchez. And that's about it.
Wow, thanks. Yeah, I was waiting for the big finish on that. So terrific.
No big finish.
No big finish yet. All right. Well, Usman, do you want to go next, and we'll get through the intro?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. It's great, glad to be here. My name is Usman Sakoso. I am the co-founder and president of Black Tag. Black Tag recently just launched about 2 months ago in 2021. Black Tag is essentially the first creator-driven platform that's offering both live entertainment and on-demand content. We're essentially, a global solution to a variety of problems that we see in both entertainment and marketing industries currently. What we've identified is that there's no specific or even a modern platform that is successfully trying to celebrate creators and bring brands and audiences together, specifically around Black alternative content, right? Not looking at Black content as a monolith, but also looking at other creators outside of Black creativity and trying to find a way to express their individual selves as they create something meaningful for themselves. And we also provide a destination for brands who specifically want to reach the spectrum of audiences in the right meaningful way and creating content and leveraging our studio in-house. My background, I've been in advertising and media and technology for a long time as Emelino, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I come from the world of TV and film, former, commercial film director, worked at Google. Prior to that, ran a creative agency for a while and created original branded content for different brands. And now I'm running this amazing company with a great individual. So glad to be here today and meeting all of you.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Usman, and welcome, everyone. So let's kind of dive right into this. So in our prep call, and the title of the panel centers around the idea of brand partnerships and influencer marketing. What does that actually mean? So I think it can mean probably a lot of different things to each of you and so on. So Liz, I'm going to come to you first and ask you, what does this mean and how do you define influencer marketing and brand partnerships? And then we'll ask everyone to kind of do the same, and then we'll pick it apart from there and try to figure out where this goes into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. At Ad Council, because we occupy such a unique space, we kind of sit at the intersection of advertising and nonprofit worlds, really have this focus on social good marketing. So I imagine our approach to influencer marketing and brand partnerships is probably a little different than some of our other friends here. Our vaccine education campaign was one where we identified an air game and a ground game opportunity to connect with influencers. So in some cases, we relied on those people who have that global massive reach, whether it's Sesame Street, 4 former presidents, the Pope. We also looked at using a more local approach by finding doctors and nurses and teachers with a smaller social media presence, but a truly authentic voice as a way to distribute facts as a trusted messenger across some of our social media and programmatic platforms. And then we also took influencer marketing out of the online space and partnered with Black, Latinx, faith-based, and rural communities to host town halls and provide resources to these community leaders to really help educate these smaller communities on the benefits of getting the vaccine and really know what that meant for people and how we can move forward safely. For brand partnerships, because Ad Council has such a long history, we're really fortunate to have a lengthy list of brands who are really eager to find ways to integrate our campaign messages into their overall strategies. We do this with our diversity and inclusion campaign, Love Has No Labels, which allows our brand partners to take this Love Has No Labels concept, which really is its own brand in and of itself, and uniquely integrate it into their own platforms. So that way we're really ensuring that the integrity of our campaign as well as their own campaign really stays intact while distributing the broader campaign messaging. Because we're not out there selling something, we're really trying to change mindsets. We rely so heavily on brands to be able to take, their own trusted messenger voice and really, integrate this authentically into their platforms. We took the same approach with our vaccine education campaign, knowing that each brand could really have their own voice and avenue to deliver these facts to their customers, whether they're, a Walgreens and have the ability of a pharmacy and that broad reach, or someone like the NFL or the NBA, who really, each have their own massive reach, but, have their own unique ways of taking our campaigns and integrating it into their own partnerships.
Terrific. That's great. It's interesting, the angle from the nonprofit, especially, and how everyone participated. And it seemed like you covered things on lots of different levels. Adam, I want to come to you because in our prep call, you were very passionate about the definition of brand partnerships and influencer marketing. So, you're all about monetization. So what's your definition of this?
Yeah, sure. So I sit in a unique place where I do act as an agency. So I represent clients, but at the same time, we are also part of a media organization. So I see a lot of the monetization side of the business. So in my opinion, influencer marketing and brand partnerships are a form of branded content. And I define branded content as content produced by an advertiser or a media company or / content creator that is compensated to endorse or produce content for an advertiser. So there's a transactional moment behind that. There's an ongoing hypothesis that all brands are actually media companies. And so brands only really need a story, content, and an audience to be defined as a media company. And you're seeing that happen more often now within these walled gardens. And this is inclusive of influencers, large media conglomerates, and even other brands. I see all three of those categories being a media company by definition. These external creators are often trendsetters. They create inspiration and produce validation that drive both like transactional results and impact amongst their community. So for example, if you look at Uncle Drew as a movie, that piece of branded entertainment, was a really unique and creative way to kind of position Pepsi, Nike, and Kyrie Irving as a personality while also driving content. Recently, Revolt TV had some headlines around partnering with Target to fund, Black-owned enterprises and building a narrative and a storyline around that, which impacts the community. Then you can also look at things a little more transactional, like, Vogue and Vanity Fair, both Condé Nast handles. They promote luxury brand and products, and they sell that, and they measure the transactions of that. So, this form of branded content really extends in different areas. So the way I see it is that it's both transactional and it impacts the community if it's done right. And ideally, there's a strong alignment between audiences and interest. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I think it's
we're gonna pick that apart shortly, because I think there's a lot of different levels to that as well. So it's really interesting as we're talking about this, because there's this notion of brand partnership and influencer marketing, and do they equal each other out? Tori, what do you think? What's your opinion on how this gets all defined out, and how are you, explaining it to folks in the industry?
Yeah, I think the second part of my answer isn't too different from Adam's, but I'll just start with saying, to me, from the representative side, influencer marketing and brand partnerships, means taking any talent with audience, if you will, and utilizing that talent along with their voice and their platform reach to promote any product, message or service. And so first on the talent part, how we define talent today, I think comes in many forms. People are using the term influencer, content creator, celebrity, public figure, regardless of what you are, what you're defined as, or what bucket you fall under. I think if you're talent with audience, you have value to offer to the public, to a service or a company. And then kind of to what Adam was saying, I tend to bucket these brand partnerships into like three categories, if you will. So first is promotional transactional. Second would be more promotional, but message driven, or also like social good driven, like Liz was saying. And then third is this like equity brand building. So the third bucket is, to me, if talent is not promoting a third party external brand, if they are building their own brand or company, which I think we've seen a lot of, quite frankly, in the last few years, and everything that they are building is, for long-term equity building and then to any value created from that brand or company would go right back to the talent or the investors of said brand or companies. That's the third. Promotional transactional, to me, just from what I see in my day-to-day job, is more of like, tends to be more of like a one-off social, branded kind of content piece campaign, more short-term, and that's not a bad thing at all. That's how a lot of talent and content creators today make a living. So there's that, and then I think the promotional message-driven, which I think we'll get into later, is kind of what I'm seeing a big rise of, where it's not as much just a one-off and not just so straightforward to promote product for a fee. There's kind of a larger message behind it. Maybe it's a bit more long-term. So like one of my favorite examples of this past year, I worked with a great skincare brand called First Aid Beauty. I've been working with this brand since they were independent up until they were acquired a couple of years ago by Procter & Gamble. So they really understand their audience really well. They've done a ton of research and found out, what do our consumers need? What do they actually want? What's going to be helpful to them? How do we give back? And they developed this campaign called Fab Aid, Fab using their initials. And basically over the last 2 years, have created this $1 million fund to help relieve people with student college loan debt. So the talent that were my clients, 3 or 4 clients were enlisted to promote this campaign last year. It was not about the product or selling Fab Aid skincare at all, or wasn't getting on, Instagram and doing an eyeshadow tutorial. It was to really just drive home the message that this brand has created this fund for consumers to go earn. Hey, if you have college loan debt, come apply. And then the campaign deliverables from talent included social content, lives where the talent got on and actually delivered the funds to the winners, which was such an exciting and special moment, and some press. And it was a really great, almost year-long campaign that kind of had this bigger message behind it.
That's awesome. I think we're going to come back to you as well with a lot of good stuff there. And I love the separation between kind of this promotional, transactional, and message driven and so on. And I think, Usman, I want to come to you to kind of give your voice on the definition here, because I think this message driven approach really applies to what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Our whole thesis is that our investment in terms of the headlines and brands are tracking in funds and developing a lot of different ideas around their perspectives in terms of branded partnerships. But for us as a company that's scaling, and while we're building scale in terms of our own audiences, we have to be very purposeful in terms of our how we're looking at actually partnering with brands. And without giving too much away, our whole focus is really looking at instead of ROI, it's more focused on return on objective, right? Partnering with platforms and companies that actually are making an impact and not more so focused on DEI and performative, results. Brands and companies that want to pledge DEI dollars for purpose-driven work, it's really, frankly, hard to track, right? If we look at the case of influencers, in 2022, I think there's going to be roughly around $15 billion within the market of influencer marketing, right? But as customers, as we're buying these products, it's really about partnering in terms of seeing who our friends and our relationships are committing to those products. And a lot of the times those customers actually, transfer over to our friends and family who actually buy those products. So we see a lot of the results being tracked, not by performative reasons, but really about community, right? And so for us, it's pledging and looking at brands to buy into Black Tag from a result-driven product that is really fundamentally building to discover brands, to discover more creators, so brands can tap into them more equally and more fruitfully, so that they can empower those creators to go out and create more content that's leveraging a brand equally as well in terms of their IP for customers to buy their products and services. So for us, it's really owning the future of what it is to consume Black media and challenging the brands around this notion of partnership with Black Tag to work towards equity and to work towards scaling a Black media that actually can provide the right results in terms of economic freedom.
Terrific. I want to hear more about some of the examples of your work as we continue on. But Emiliano, first, give us your definition here about brand partnerships and influencer marketing, and how are you seeing the landscape?
Wow. And this, by the way, this is so interesting.
And you only have a few minutes.
No, I have a couple of, yeah, I know. And this is such a, TV used to be easier because it was essentially, it came down to 4 or 5 metrics and that was it. The world that we're living in right now is, exponentially harder. But to me, I start by sort of a big change in the paradigm of all things media. And to me, that one thing is about the fact that brands no longer talk to consumers, if you will. Consumers essentially talk to each other about brands, and that to me is the biggest and more fundamental change in the last few years. From that perspective, we're in my company, yes, we do branded content. Yes, we engage with influencer marketing. But to me, based on that premise, that's where influencer marketing becomes really relevant, because influencer marketing is, at the end of the day, for a brand, is sort of using the equity from an influencer as your content studio, if you will, to get that credibility and expertise against your brand's target for your product. To me, influencer marketing works when on top of that, you add another layer, which is what I call performance marketing, right? You surround that credibility and expertise organically with performance marketing, which in turn will make your conversion and your results much more measurable and concrete. To me, that's, and that all comes from that change in paradigm that I mentioned earlier on. And then brand partnership, in a nutshell, is something that we're very, sort of keen on. Is essentially what we also know as co-branding, is when two or more non-competing brands that usually have similar targets and values get together in order to get exponential results. I think that can only lead, provided you have the right brands together, can only lead to broader audiences and more value overall. I think that's very, very powerful. In our case, just to finish off, we're building, we're using content and storytelling to build a marketplace, right? In other words, our end result is moving from moving our fans, which are in the millions, to becoming customers, which is essentially, it sounds easy, but as everybody knows, it's not so. So within that ecosystem, I mean, influencer marketing is a key. It's a key component.
Great, terrific. It's really interesting listening to all of you describe this landscape. You seem like you use common words and then different ones at the same time. And the question that I just was thinking of as I was listening to you is like, why should brands and influencers, I guess, work together to even do this in the first place? And I guess kind of where my head is with this question is like, does this really even work? And maybe Liz, why don't I come to you, and then Adam, and we'll just kind of mix it up here. But I'm kind of curious. Like, there's so much that goes into this, right? And so much effort and money and time and creating new assets and so on, and then having to put paid media on top of it. Does it even work? So Liz, why don't you start there?
I mean, I think one of the common misconceptions is that maybe people think they can align themselves with one person or one brand, and that's really going to be the end all be all. But people at this point align themselves with so many different people and brands and concepts and thoughts. And, there's really no telling what one person from the next, what's going to drive them to go, become loyal to that brand, or what's going to entice them. And so I think it's important to really look at that data and do that research ahead of time to understand, okay, what are all of the different nuances? Like, who's my untapped market? What are the different things that, resonate with them that we can really, bring to the table to help drive new customers and drive new sales, or even drive retention, which is really what everyone's looking for at the end of the day. So I definitely think it's working. There's also, we're really invested in this concept of trusted messengers. And this day and age, a banner ad is great, and it might help drive, a retarget on a, or additional sale on a pair of shoes, but it's not going to keep people invested in your brand. And so it's really aligning people, with your brand to kind of be those storytellers and be that trusted messenger so that your audience knows you're authentic, but also is really, receiving the facts and the information from someone who they trust, which I think is really important. And I don't know what always drives me to think of this. So I come from Georgia, grew up a lifelong Chick-fil-A fan. And as soon as Popeyes and Megan Thee Stallion came out with their, hottie sauce, I'm like, I'm sold. I don't know what it is about this, but I am officially done with Polynesian sauce and bought into hottie sauce, and I've moved over. So I definitely think it's important. I definitely think it works.
You're an excellent consumer, Liz. Love it. Adam, help me understand, why is this effective? Why should people be doing this? And, kind of what are the gotchas with it?
I mean, there's a lot of studies out there, and I can bore you with a gazillion stats if you, through Google search, right? But I'll throw you a couple that are meaningful. Recently I read that branded content had 22x more impact than traditional banner ads. So if you're going to invest into media, I mean, that's a stat that's worth knowing. Facebook did a study not too long ago where they measured, nearly 300 different advertisers using Instagram branded content, and they saw an 82% probability for purchase outcomes. So it drives ROI. I would say a lot of these walled gardens also enable measurement now. So yes, it can be a trendsetter, it can drive inspiration, but it's also measurable and transactional. Nowadays, you have things like shoppertainment, right? Huge in China. Live stream is huge in China. You have a 2-year-old influencer, not 2 years old, the influencer who's been in the industry for 2 years, Lipstick Brother, who sold almost $2 billion worth of product in a 24-hour window. Can you say that's possible, in a traditional media buying environment? I don't know if you could. I mean, these numbers are astronomical right now. It's still a wild, wild west. There's a lot of innovation. And so when you think about innovation and new uses of technology and different content creation and loyal audiences, it's exciting, it's sexy. And I think as long as it's sexy, people will still kind of lean into it until it proves itself. If you asked me like 4 or 5 years ago, I'm singing a different tune. I was skeptical about influencer marketing and branded content. I didn't know if it would work. I was the first on the soapbox to say, I don't know. I think it's going to be a fad and it's going to go away. And I was proven wrong. You look 4 or 5 years later, and it's immersed in a must-have as part of the marketing landscape. And there's a lot of different ways to use it. There's this concept of the inverted influencer pyramid, right? Where you have macro, you have micro, and then you have nano. And there's often a debate, which one do you use? And in a perfect world, you're using all three, right? You're using a big media conglomerate to be your macro or your big personality. You're using micro to drive engagement, and you're using nano to get into the local market to drive action, right? So inspiration through to validation. So I think for those reasons, it's here to stay. It's going to be impactful, and I think that's why people are leaned into it. It's the reason why we're having this panel in the first place.
Yeah, well, it seems like what you just described is what Liz, was accomplishing with her vaccine campaign or vaccine awareness campaign. Liz, I'm coming to you, and then maybe Tori as well, on this notion of being more message driven. And Usman, you used the phrase "return on objective." How do you translate that and make sure that makes sense for the partners and influencers that you're working with, and how are they seeing that return on objective?
Well, I think it has to be based off of the real objective of what the business is doing, or what certainly, what we're, doing. Our whole thesis is really based on this notion, idea around that Black creative power needs to equate to economic power. And what that essentially means, why we built our platform, was that we saw the space, Black creators creating meaningful content, but unfortunately it was getting evangelized and taking and not getting, repurposed to their own, back to themselves and getting paid, right? You saw the case study on TikTok, Black creators leaving TikTok, for instance. And so this notion of creating something onto the market and having brands see it and then evangelizing it, but not giving that investment back to the creator is a real problem. And so we built fundamentally, the business was, fundamentally built around this idea of giving back to the creators and giving them a meaningful way to go out and create more content that then gets back to them in terms of their own capital, right? And so this idea of building a return on objective what's our objective is essentially built on this premise of helping creators empower themselves and helping creators build economic value throughout the environment. But also, more importantly, creating a new era of content that is not traditional, right? When we look at Black media and entities that are telling story, it's very limited. You have BET and you have Revolt, but something that's a bit more interactive, that's a bit more raw, that's touching the future of Black creativity.
And how are brands intersecting into that?
Right, great question. So for us, what we've identified is that brands should actually be discovered within the platform, right? Us as a creator studio, creating content, meaningful content with them. Instead of paid media and instead of traditional advertising, 60-second ads, work with us within our list of creators, create something really meaningful for your products or services that actually is engaging and tells a story that this creator is actually using this product and service in their own personal life, right? And then create something that's engaging, that lives on our product, but also can live in other platforms as well. Also on top of that is looking at the real brands that believe in our mission and want to invest into that and buying into our mission and our brand in terms of actually helping us get to that stage, right? And so there's different ways in terms of the buckets of way brands integrate with us. But first and foremost, it's the brand believing in our cause and our mission of why we exist and why we built this platform to help creators scale.
That's great. That seems to tie into, Tori, what you're talking about. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that and how you're building that out more broadly?
Yeah, so I kind of like have answers to I think two of the things that were discussed. So with brands seeing ROI and coming back, like we don't always get the hard results, right, of the campaigns that our talent is tapped to do, because I'm really again on the representation side. So we kind of will plug our clients into campaigns from brands, whether again for the promotional, transactional, or the more message driven or whatever. We'll kind of plug them into a campaign that was already kind of fully baked. And one way that I think we measure the success, or if you know something is successful, I mean, we'll be told that information first off, or second of all, the brand will come back for a repeat campaign usually. And I think some examples that we've seen of this is with the First Aid Beauty example I've given. Like we did that campaign in 2020, and then that brand came back in 2021 with bigger budgets to kind of do that same initiative again. This time kind of blowing it even more out of the water. They increased the amount of funds that they wanted to give and all of that good stuff. So we do see, I think, that this is working, right? When you tap talent that reaches the brand's audience, clearly there was a success story there if they're coming back to do it again. That's at least something I would see as a measure of success. Another great example, I think, it is maybe just the hard sales. Like we represent this fantastic client. I cannot take all the credit. I'm just on the periphery team, Tabitha Brown. If you've seen what Tabitha's done in just the last year, year and a half alone, it's truly this unicorn story of someone who has just, taken her virality off of TikTok and has built true businesses off of social media. And the power of Tab is unlike something we've seen in a really long time. We launched a partnership with her and McCormick Spices to launch her own custom spice. Now, this is a brand, McCormick Spices, everyone knows, is a historic brand, been around for years, hundreds of years. They've never before worked with talent until Tabitha. That spice that she created for the first round sold out, I think, within 42 minutes. And broke sales records. So therefore, they came back and wanted to do a second run of that product a few months later. And I just think it's a testament, like the power of talent is so strong, and the results are positive when you see the numbers first off, and then second off when the brand or that partner wants to come back and repeat and continue to grow, because talent, it's working, right? They're delivering on what they sometimes you can't control, you can't promise it, but they're delivering.
Yeah, one interesting question maybe for you guys is, whether it's for you, Tori, maybe Adam as well, is this sustainable? Because like you've both you, Tori, and Adam gave examples where there's some tremendous spike in one day or in 42 minutes, right? You have this tremendous output, right, and transactional volume. Is that sustainable, right? Could a brand exist just using this, or prioritizing just using this as their acquisition strategy?
I can field that just to start.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not the expert, but my opinion is, social media marketing has kind of like democratized marketing. I mean, there's the legacy brands, there was There's Procter and Gamble and Unilever and Secret deodorant and Dove deodorant. But over the last few years, we've really seen this rise of challenger brands. You walk into a Target or a CVS, there's 50 deodorant brands or toothpaste brands or whatever. So the brands you don't need to be some legacy brand with millions of dollars to create like a traditional media ad, kind of what Adam was saying earlier. If you've got 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, you can go and kind of find a way to market your product that's going to work within your budget and reach the audience you need it to reach. So is it sustainable? I think, it's definitely an oversaturated market right now, but the good news is there's new brands, there's challenger brands, there's a lot of new talent, new platforms every day with new talent coming off of it. So I think there is a lot of different ways to market and get creative, and you don't need to just be one of the top, like a Fortune 500 company anymore to get the word out. So it's kind of making it a really unique landscape.
Adam, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would add that it's sustainable as long as you think about it from a halo effect. It needs to be an integrated media mix, and you need to figure out how to extend the value of that creative investment, right? That content, that brand partnership, you're using it for creative. But at the end of the day, reach is limited, right? If you look at Facebook 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you're probably at like 15% organic reach and engagement. Nowadays, if organic reach is probably less than 2%. And so in order to get more eyeballs on that, you have to make it part of a media investment. You have to amplify it. That's number one. Number two is you have to think about it from a halo effect. I'll give you an example. Up here, I live in LA, so I see this billboard, Kylie Jenner's billboard, every day on Santa Monica and La Cienega, every day when I drive by. And you can throw a media mix behind that, right? That billboard, if it was a digital out-of-home billboard, even if it's not, you had the latitude and longitude lines. You can use tech to identify device IDs that have passed by this billboard. You can take that list of device IDs and produce an audience. Now you can follow up and retarget the people who've been exposed to that Kylie Jenner's content around lipstick, right? And sell that content to Sephora. So there are so many ways to leverage it. You just have to think outside the box and make it a larger part of the media mix. And as long as you do that, I think it's sustainable.
Yeah, good point. Emiliano, I know you kind of were touching on that too, that it's important to bring paid media into this as well. Do you want to add to that?
Absolutely. I fully agree with Adam, and it never ceases to amaze me the amount of brands, and I think Tori was referring to that are digital native and that essentially are born the other way around as traditional brands. And take deodorants, many digital native brands that are born out of social media using an influencer strategy, a viral strategy if you want, but then at some point you need to in order to sustain that the growth of that business, I feel that you're going to be forced to spending just more traditional media, if you will, and using paid media. But most importantly, then distribution comes into play, right? You're kind of forced with dealing with a retail distribution. And by definition, for retail distribution, you're going to have to use a combination of traditional media plus probably some lower funnel performance digital media. So like the good news is, like Adam was saying, is right now you are really able to think outside of the box. I mean, go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you were an entrepreneur launching a product, and your options were at best 8 or 10 in terms of how you could go about distributing and getting your product to be known by people. Now you can actually get really creative. That to me is the beauty of this, and at the same time the riddle.
Nice.
I
Liz,
want to add a
please.
little section to the continuation or the alignment of brands and influence marketing. I think I can't speak if it's sustainable. I think it will be sustainable as long as brands continue to reinvent the wheel, right? Like it can't always be a continuous cycle of what was done before. Now we're going into Web3, right? So what does that mean for brands? How do they, take on the metaverse and that new world of audiences and creators that are submerged in that technology, right? I think traditionally what we've seen, why influencer marketing is here today is because of part of reinventing the wheel and positioning your product to a society that consumes, right? And part of that society is the consumers, and it's also the customers, but it's also the creators who are partnering with that brand to create something that's meaningful to then be sold. So sustainability has to be built and integrated with a action of reinventing and selling a product, right? And that emergence is going into now what brands are nascent to, which is this new era of the metaverse. So I can't speak to it in terms of how long it'll take, but I think as long as we continuously reinvent how we integrate influencers and brands to something that's a bit more authentic and not just selling something because a brand paid you because you actually don't even use the product. I think we have to get away from that. And folks are starting to get a bit more sensible and a bit more hip to actually influencers not even using the product, but also just taking it because it's a paycheck. So I just wanted to add that notion that it's here to stay and it's very much valuable. We built a business off of that. But doing it in a much more authentic way and finding ways to reinvent the wheel in terms of selling is where we must go.
Yeah, that feels like to me the message that I'm hearing from all of you is that there's, it's available now. It's up to you guys to figure out how to get creative with it and take advantage of it. And like you said, it's Usman, to paraphrase, right? It's not just about this, pay for performance kind of, hey, I posted for you, so give me my paycheck and I'm done. So. Liz, do you want to add anything to that? Otherwise, I'm going to shift gears for another minute or two. And
I was just going to say, I think the concept of influencer marketing is absolutely sustainable. But if you think you're going to be able to align yourself with one person and maintain that, what is sustainable? Is it a year? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? These people are still people and they grow and their opinions change and their actions change. And they constantly think about, Peloton coming out with that great ad right after Sex in the City. And then 2 days later, the whole thing is pulled. So you have to be nimble and you have to be conscious of the fact that you're working with people. And so, again, I think it's all about not aligning yourself with one person, being really diverse in the audience who you're trying to reach and the, creators who you're working with.
That's an interesting point that maybe I'd like to ask is, do brands have to be daring to do this? Or is this just part of the new media mix? Do they have to be willing to kind of be a little edgier than maybe they normally would be?
I don't know about edgy. I love the ad council. I love my job. I don't consider us an edgy brand, but at the same time, you have to be comfortable knowing that whoever you align yourself with, you're going to upset someone. And so this concept of comment moderation and knowing who it is you're going after and being okay with the negative feedback and the negative comments and the negative responses can sometimes be just as powerful and impactful as the positive attention that you're drawing. And almost, for our case, it's all about inciting conversation. And so, sometimes there's certainly horrible comments that, we have to get rid of, but sometimes there is, actual conversations taking place because of the messages that we're putting out there. And I think that that's something you kind of have to be prepared for.
That's great. I do want to ask a quick question because we are running out of time, unfortunately. But Adam, I want to ask you to maybe give a little commentary on the state of platforms. I know we were kind of talking about this on some of the prep, but and maybe Tori as well. But where are we at in terms of working with the platforms and how the platforms are themselves evolving? So maybe Adam and then Tori, and then we'll move to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be as crisp as possible, but I'm gonna break it up into two topics here. One, the platforms are enabling publishers to monetize or creators to monetize, period, right? You have Facebook that implemented something called pixel sharing, where you can now measure the impact of your creator content to how retailers might sell product. You have Instagram innovating product tags with branded content, so they can literally have a product in the image or the video, and it's tagged, and you can buy that in a retailer. So that's innovation that's enabling transactional experiences. But within each walled garden, this kind of feeds into what Usman and Liz and yourself were saying a moment ago. How do you try new things and how do you do new things? And so I'll leave you with my thought here, where these walled gardens enable you to be a little more edgy. And I'll use this example. I consider branded content and influencer partnerships very much like pizza. Right? Everybody loves pizza. And if you sneak on some toppings that don't really belong, and in my opinion, pickle and pineapple do not belong on pizzas. It's edgy, it's different, people are trying it. people still consume it, right? And then similar to thought, when you have a loyal audience as a creator, and you're still using your authentic voice, whether you're promoting a product that's on brand or off brand to you, there's a higher chance that your audience will still consume that. So as an example, we ran a test for like a high fashion beauty publication where we compared creative performance using the advertiser supply content, which was an influencer provider, right? Not sorry, an insurance provider. And an insurance is not really a sexy topic. But when we compared the impact of that, just like pineapple or broccoli on pizza, those insurance ads were consumed at a high rate compared to this insurance ad running off the insurance handle standalone. It was better by 70% when it came from the creator or publisher handle. And so that's what those walled gardens enable, right? That enables you to leverage the power of data in your audiences in a powerful way that even insurance, something really dry, could be improved by 70% when it's run on a site that's completely not related to it.
Hey, Adam, I'm just going to say, I like pineapple on pizza, especially with bacon. So I'm just saying. Tori,
panel in itself.
Tori, quick comment on the platforms, and then unfortunately we're going to have to move to wrap up here. So
I might have to disagree with you there. I'm not a pineapple pizza. But so I'm just going to kick it off with a quick story. But I remember, platforms are changing, period. And I will never forget, I think the year was 2012 or 2013. I was working on a big a tour sponsorship. And it was one of the first times we saw baked into the contract that the artist had to do a tagged post on Facebook. And as the assistant at the time, like the young one in the group, I was tasked with like trying to figure out what tagging a brand on Facebook was. Remember, like if everyone thinks back, this is before Instagram, this is way before TikTok and Snapchat. And you just had to simply like go in on the back end and someone had to give access, and it was this whole thing. And I just bring up that story because we've come such a long way from that. Like that was just the beginning. And I don't even know if anyone knew that at the time, that to go in and hyperlink, to be able to tag a brand on Facebook was just a new thing that somebody had to figure out and teach talent and reps in the industry how to do. So we've come a long way from that. There's this term, I think it's coined from the guys on this podcast I listen to, Snacks Daily, zucking. So as we can see, a lot of the platforms are zucking or taking, Mark Zuckerberg's team is taking a lot of the functionalities that we're seeing from these newer platforms, right? From Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, took stories. Now from, TikTok, everyone has taken Reels and YouTube Shorts. So there is change in this industry, and it's happening faster than ever. And again, I bring up that 2012 story because back then it was kind of a slow progression, but now things are changing, weekly, if not daily. It seems like there's a new product. I don't know about everybody else, but even just for me over the holidays, I feel like my Instagram reel changed like overnight, and I'm suddenly getting served more reels and more brand ads than ever before. So I just think my takeaway from all of this is that talent and the brands and the reps and everybody in this industry needs to stay educated, be willing to adapt and kind of keep up with the change. Brands are going to kind of, I think, continue, at least from what I see, kind of continue to dictate what they want to see, at least in terms of brand partnership campaigns. Like, hey, does a static post work? No, we're commanding a reel. No, we're commanding a YouTube video because we want long form. It's still going to be ever changing. I'd say my kind of takeaway for the brand side, just because again, I'm a talent rep. So brands, if you are going to enlist talent, try to keep an open mind, right? You're not paying someone to create a static print ad. You're not paying an advertising agency to create a commercial that you have kind of actors, an ensemble cast starring in. If you're going to enlist talent to create something for your brand, you're using them for a reason, right? You either know that they resonate with your audience, they have a unique POV, they're the creative, let them run with the creative. Within the parameters of what you need accomplished, let them run with the creative. That's what I think is going to work best. They know their platforms best, and just kind of trust the process.
Cool. Great suggestions. Unfortunately, guys, we have to wrap up. We're already, believe it or not, we already have gone through a full 45 minutes or so. Great insights. There's so much more that we could be talking about, but I guess I'd like to ask each of you very lastly for a very quick comment on, the title of the panel was centered around the future of this. So what do you think really quickly is the future of influencer marketing and brand partnerships? Emiliano?
Well, I mean, I think that
Short answer.
listen, I think that influencer, look, and this is just of course, a hunch. Otherwise, I'd be a billionaire. But my feeling is that influencer marketing is here to stay, and there's definitely a notion now that is here to stay, which is that influencers are somehow more akin to a close friend than an advertiser or a paid endorser, and that has a value that hardly a brand will ever be able to replace. So to me, as long as influencers keep that notion alive, and the notion of being an expert at something and accessible, if you will, and credible, I think that's here to stay and to evolve. So we'll see.
Great point. Thank you. Usman, real quick, what's your thought? What's your prediction for the future here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely here to stay. I think it's definitely not going to go anywhere. It's going to continue scaling. What I do hope and think that brands will start looking at is building out important, authentic building strategies, right? Like really building engaging ways to talk to their consumers, and talking to those influencers, and building out specific ideas around connecting with that specific influencer's audience, and bringing them into the actual evolution of that product's evolutional process, right? Like from the ground all the way to the future of where that brand wants to go, and creating meaningful commitment to that influencer. So it's not a one-off.
It's not a one-way street either.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Liz, prediction for the future here.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to sound somewhat selfish on my end, but I'm really hoping that, this idea of social impact and both brands and influencers alike aligning themselves with things like mental health, like climate change, and really just integrating that into, their everyday conversations, as well as what they do, both on a paid and brand partnership side, just, hoping really to continue to see that grow, because these are the people who, this is who people listen to.
Awesome. Thank you. Tori, quick prediction for the future.
I agree with everything said so far. I think it's here to stay. I think that I'm kind of going back to what I said earlier about talent with audience is just the future. The lines are going to keep blurring more. So, celebrities are influencers. Influencers are celebrities. New entertainment programming are dictating new, celebrities and hot public figures overnight, right? We've seen the stars of Squid Game. We're seeing shows like Love is Blind, and then The Bachelor, and just these shows. There's new talent coming up off of new programming daily, and I just think those trends are going to continue to happen as there's more streaming services, more platforms, and more creators and talent coming off of those. And then something I think we're all learning is, talent, like this whole industry might move into a completely different space with this metaverse and with the rise of NFTs and other ways to monetize that I don't think we're even fully into yet, but clearly that is already here. People are going to space, and I don't know if I want to even beer when that happens. Or that's the future, and we'll address that. Maybe
we'll get there.
200 panel, whatever you're.
Nice. All right, Adam. Final thought. Prediction for the future.
Yeah. So brands will be media companies. Media companies are retailers, and all three brands, media companies, and retailers will start leveraging shoppertainment like we've never seen it before.
Awesome. Nice and succinct. Guys, thank you so much. You guys have been great. I wish we had more time. I still have a boatload of questions to ask you guys. It's such an interesting topic, and I do believe that it is sustainable into the future, and it's exciting to see how it'll evolve. So with that, we're going to conclude. Guys, thank you so much, Emiliano, Tori, Liz, Adam, and Usman. Thank you guys for participating today. Appreciate it. And maybe next year we'll see each other in person at CES. So thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye-bye.
Take care.